Oh my god, dude, you would not believe the rabbit hole I've gone down lately. So, you know how we're always talking about South Park, right? Well, I started thinking about all the characters who showed up for just one episode and then just disappeared. You know, the ones that were so bizarre or hilarious or specific that you'd think they'd have to come back, but they never did. It's like a huge invisible graveyard of comedic gold, a whole forgotten world of one-off jokes and insane premises. And I swear, trying to figure out what happened to every single one of them is like a spiritual quest into the heart of TV absurdity. The Chili Cook-Off, guys. First up, you have the characters who were so integral to a single iconic episode that they couldn't possibly exist outside of it. You know who I'm talking about, right? The Chili Cook-Off judges from Scott Tenorman Must Die. These guys are the perfect example of comedic innocence. They're just regular suburban dudes who probably had no idea what they were getting into when they signed up to be judges for a local chili competition. They're totally oblivious to the insanely, horrifically murderous plot that's unfolding around them. Think about it. They're just sitting there, tasting chili samples, making mundane comments about the texture and flavor, while Cartman is literally orchestrating a revenge so devious it would make a Bond villain blush. They just taste the chili, declare it the winner with an unassuming "that's a good chili," and then they go home. What happened to them? Probably nothing. They probably went back to their normal, average lives, completely unaware that for a brief, shining moment they were pawns in one of the most diabolical schemes ever put to television. It's the sheer, stunning banality of their roles that makes them so unforgettable. They weren't a part of the plot, they were just a vehicle for its final, shocking punchline. And that's why their one-off appearance is so perfect. It's a stark, hilarious contrast between the mundane reality of their lives and the unspeakable horror they just consumed. The Last Mohican. Then there's the guy from the Last of the Mohicans episode. He's this legendary mythical figure, the last of his kind. He's so serious and noble, just trying to find his way back to his people. He's the entire focus of the episode, and the story wraps up with him finally finding his home. What happened to him? He just went back to his life. He's probably still out there, living out his days in quiet dignity, completely forgotten by the world. It's a perfect example of how the show can create an entire rich backstory for a single joke and then just move on. The biker from the F Word. This is one of my favorites, purely for the sheer magnificent absurdity of it. Remember the Harley biker from the episode The F Word? The one with the ginormous, life-threatening testicular condition? I mean, just the visual of the guy struggling to walk with his colossal scrotum is peak South Park. He wasn't just a sight gag either. He was a whole subplot. He was a medical marvel, a man suffering from an incredibly serious and bizarre condition. And for a while, the entire town's attention was focused on him and his affliction. He became the central figure of a whole debate, with doctors and reporters discussing his condition as if it were a national crisis. He served as the anchor for the episode's main plot about reclaiming a word and its meaning. And then he just vanished. He was a one-joke character, a single ridiculous premise stretched to its absolute limit. And once that purpose was served, he was simply dropped. You have to assume his life went back to normal. Or as normal as it could be for a guy who once had a scrotum the size of a beach ball. You just never hear from him again. It's a testament to the show's genius that they can take a single, insane idea, turn it into a surprisingly deep and funny commentary, and then just leave it all behind in the dust. Mitch Connor. And what about Mitch Connor? You know, Cartman's hand puppet persona? For a brief, glorious moment, this little dude became the central figure of the episode Titties and Dragons, with his own dramatic soap opera-esque backstory. He was a spy, a villain, and then he was just a hand puppet again. He fulfilled his purpose and was promptly put back in the closet, a forgotten piece of Cartman's psyche. His arc was so complete in a single episode, it would have been a shame to ruin it by bringing him back. The mascots from Douche and a Turd. The epic battle between Giant Douche and Turd Sandwich was a hilarious commentary on the absurdity of American politics, and it's a perfect example of a one-time gag. These two characters weren't just random jokes, they were living, breathing representations of a political dichotomy that many voters feel trapped in. The show created a whole narrative around them, with the town of South Park being forced to choose between two equally unappealing candidates. The satirical brilliance of the episode came from the fact that no matter who the town chose, they were essentially voting for something terrible. The tension builds to a climax as Stan, representing the disillusioned voter, is pressured to make a choice. But once the election was over and Stan had made his choice, they were just gone. They served their purpose as a one-time gag, a perfectly crafted piece of political satire that couldn't possibly exist outside of its original context. Their story and their very existence ended the moment the votes were counted, leaving a lasting impression on the audience about the nature of political choices. The Smug from Smug Alert. This one is more of an entity than a character, but it's still a perfect example of a one-time creation. The toxic cloud of smug that formed over South Park in San Francisco was a direct result of people driving hybrid cars and feeling superior about it. This giant personified cloud of self-satisfaction was the antagonist of the episode. It had its moment, it destroyed San Francisco, and then it dissipated. You have to assume it's still out there, just in smaller, less lethal doses, waiting for the next person to get a hybrid and feel a little too good about themselves. When it comes to the vast and ever-growing cast of South Park characters, some of the most memorable are those who appear for a single episode and then vanish into the show's rich lore. We can't forget Jared Fogle from the Jared Has AIDS episode. This was a direct and timely parody of a real person, so his one-time appearance was a given from the start. His entire plot was based on a simple yet classic South Park misunderstanding of the word AIDS. The townspeople of South Park heard that Jared had AIDS, who helped him with his weight loss journey, and in their typical misinformed fashion, they immediately jumped to the conclusion that he had AIDS. This hilarious misinterpretation provided the foundation for the entire episode's narrative. Jared's every attempt to clarify his situation was met with the town's increasingly frantic and aggressive avoidance. He ran, he was chased, and the town's collective hysteria reached a fever pitch. In the end, the joke was revealed and the town's confusion was cleared up, leaving them embarrassed by their own ignorance. But what happened to Jared after that? He just went back to being a spokesperson. His story in the South Park universe was over the moment the town realized their mistake. There was no need for a sequel or a return. His comedic purpose was fulfilled entirely within that one episode, serving as a perfect example of how the show leverages real-world figures for a single powerful joke and then moves on, leaving the moment to stand on its own. So you want to know about Trent Boyette, huh? Man, what a character. You know how South Park is full of these one-off people who just show up for one episode and totally steal the show? Well, Trent Boyette is probably one of the best examples of that, and he's not even a big-name celebrity guest star. He's just this incredibly memorable, terrifying, and hilarious character from the episode Preschool. Remember that episode? It's one of those classic ones where the boys are facing some kind of absurd life-or-death situation, but it's all their own fault. The whole plot is set in motion because of this event that happened when they were in preschool. Apparently, some kind of tragic accident happened where a teacher was horribly disfigured. The boys, being the boys, did what they always do. They pinned the whole thing on someone else, a kid named Trent Boyette. And this guy, this tiny little preschooler, was sent to juvie for it. The episode picks up years later when he's finally getting out. The best part about Trent isn't his backstory though, it's the way he's drawn and presented. The moment the boys see him in the newspaper, it's a moment of pure dread. They're terrified, and for good reason. The show gives him this ridiculous, disproportionately muscular physique, like he's been lifting weights in juvie since he was 4. He's got a 5 o'clock shadow, a menacing scowl, and a voice that sounds like a much older, angrier man. He's the physical embodiment of the boys' guilt and fear, and it's absolutely hysterical to watch them panic. What makes him so great is that he's not a one-dimensional villain. The episode plays with the idea of who the real bad guys are. The boys are the ones who framed him, so is he really the villain for wanting revenge? He's also given a clear motive, to get revenge on the person he believes framed him, which turns out to be a classic South Park twist. The episode builds up this insane tension as the boys try to figure out who the snitch was, all while living in fear of this pint-sized Terminator. By the end of the episode, he gets his revenge, but not in the way you'd expect. He's more of a force of nature than a character. He serves his purpose, resolves the conflict, and then disappears forever, just like so many other great South Park characters. It's a perfect example of the show's genius, creating a character who is so over the top and memorable that he doesn't need to return. He's just a hilarious one-time threat that the boys had to face, and the fact that we've never seen him again just adds to his legend. He's a true classic. The thing is, the genius of South Park is in its disposability. It's a creative philosophy that sets it apart from almost every other long-running animated series. Unlike a show that's trying to build a consistent, interconnected universe with deep character histories and overarching plots, like, say, The Simpsons, South Park is building a new sandbox for each episode. Every week, the creators are handed a fresh, new pile of sand, a brand new set of toys, and a completely new story to tell, unburdened by the weight of what came before. And the characters from last week? Well, they're buried somewhere in the old sand, waiting for the next rainstorm that might or might not wash them back to the surface. It's what keeps the show so remarkably fresh and surprising, even after all these years and hundreds of episodes. This unique approach to storytelling means that when a new character makes their debut, whether it's a sentient piece of feces, a talking towel, or a legendary gerbil on a quest, you, the viewer,